She crossed the stars to save us, but her warning became a whisper of love. This is HFY Vanguard, where salvation wears a heartbeat. The legend begins now. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of gray, ordinary day when even miracles could slip through unnoticed. Parker City's skies had been dull for hours, clouds rolling like tired blankets above the skyline. But then a shimmer appeared. At first, it looked like a trick of light, the kind of atmospheric distortion you'd blame on fatigue or cheap sunglasses. Then the shimmer tore open, silent, surgical, and the world changed. The air itself screamed as the ship emerged. A ripple of energy spread across the park's open fields, bending trees and shattering nearby streetlights. The craft descended slowly, rotating on a vertical axis with eerie precision. Sleek and silver black, it was no larger than a delivery van, yet every inch of its surface pulsed with alien geometry, runes that shifted like liquid metal. The grass beneath it burst into flame for a second before dying into a perfect black circle. Steam hissed. The smell of ozone and scorched chlorophyll filled the air. 3 joggers stopped mid-run, frozen by the spectacle. A mother clutched her child's hand. Someone pulled out their phone. And just like that, 1,000 worlds away, the first contact with another civilization became content. A seam cracked open in the ship's hull. A hiss escaped, slow and deliberate, like a sigh from a machine that had traveled too far and carried too much. When the ramp extended, it didn't clank like metal. It sang, vibrating with a harmonic tone that sent tingles down the human spine. Then she stepped out. Her name was Lael Noxa, though no one knew it yet. She was tall, not impossibly so, but elegant in the way gravity seemed to obey her differently. Her skin was a luminous shade of violet, catching sunlight as if refracting from within. No hair, instead smooth ridges swept back from her temples like a crown sculpted by evolution itself. And her eyes, wide almond-shaped, glowing with a subtle emerald luminescence, scanned the park with calm calculation. She wore a fitted bodysuit that clung to her form like liquid armor, black as obsidian lined with faint gold veins pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. When she spoke, her voice carried both melody and command. "I need to speak with your leaders." The words were perfect English, too perfect, as though language itself bent to accommodate her. No one answered. Someone giggled nervously. Another shouted, "Nice cosplay." Phones rose higher. Lenses zoomed in. Hashtags were born. "My name is Lael Noxa," she continued. "I come from the Vega star system, 369 light-years from your world. Your planet faces imminent danger." Her tone was not pleading. It was factual, clinical, the voice of someone who had rehearsed this speech across countless star systems that had already fallen. But here her warning met only the sound of human laughter. "Get this on TikTok," someone yelled. Lyle's crest pulsed with faint silver light, a sign of irritation. "The Dravari Collective," she pressed on, "has targeted your solar system for resource extraction. They will arrive within 60 of your Earth days. You must prepare your defenses." A woman in a business suit interrupted, whispering to a friend, "She's delusional." "Poor thing." Another muttered, "Meth, probably." Leo blinked slowly, recalibrating her expectations of this species. They do not listen, she thought. They mock what they do not understand. Then came the sirens. 2 police cruisers rolled up along the curb lights, flashing red and blue against the polished hull of her ship. The crowd parted, phones still recording. Officer Daniels, grizzled and unimpressed, barked orders for everyone to back up. His partner, Officer Jack Morgan, approached cautiously, younger, lean, with alert brown eyes and a quiet intensity that suggested curiosity over fear. "Ma'am," Morgan said, one hand hovering near his holster, "we've had reports of a disturbance. Care to tell me what's going on here?" "I am an envoy," Leo replied evenly. "Your planet is in grave danger. I have traveled across interstellar space to deliver a warning." Daniel snorted. "Oh, for Christ's sake, Morgan, she's high. Maybe schizophrenic. Call it in." But Morgan hesitated. He studied her, the glow beneath her skin, the perfect symmetry of her features, the small heat distortion around her body that hinted at some kind of energy field. She didn't look fake, and the ship behind her definitely wasn't. "Where'd you come from?" he asked quietly. "Vega," she said. "Sector 14 Gamma. My vessel carries proof." Before Morgan could respond, Daniel stepped forward. Okay, Space Lady, how about you come with us, nice and easy, before this gets weirder? Lyle turned to Morgan, emerald eyes unwavering. You must believe me. The Dravari will strip your planet bare. They have already consumed 12 worlds in my sector. Her voice trembled, not with fear but urgency. Morgan's pulse quickened. He didn't understand why, but something about her tone, its mixture of precision and despair, bypassed every rational defense he had. It felt true. Before he could answer, Daniel shouted for backup. Within minutes, fire trucks and hazmat teams arrived. Drones circled overhead. News vans parked nearby. Parker City Park had become a circus of flashing lights and human chaos. Lyle watched them swarm like insects, ironic, considering the monster she came to warn them about. You misunderstand, she said, raising her hands. My vessel carries evidence of the Dravari threat. Please. Daniels grabbed her arm roughly. That's enough, lady. You're coming in for evaluation. The touch triggered a reflex. A faint shimmer rippled across her skin. Daniels yelped and pulled back his palm, briefly glowing blue, as though electrocuted by cold light. Gasps erupted. Someone screamed. She shocked him. Weapons drew. Voices escalated. The energy in the air became thick with panic. Morgan moved between them instinctively. Everyone stand down, he shouted. She's not attacking. Leo met his gaze, and for the first time something softened in her. Gratitude, relief, perhaps even surprise. You, she said quietly. You hear me? Yeah, he said. Unfortunately. Moments later, under orders from the arriving federal agent, she was taken into custody. Her ship was cordoned off by men in black uniforms bearing no insignia. The park emptied under curfew. By nightfall, social media was ablaze with theories: hoax government stunt, viral marketing, alien invasion. Hashtags trended faster than facts. And in the middle of it all, Officer Jack Morgan sat in the precinct's observation room, staring through the one-way glass at the strange woman now sitting silently in her cell. She didn't fidget, didn't plead, didn't look afraid. She simply sat watching the clock as if counting down. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything she'd said was real and that time was running out. Outside, rain began to fall soft at first, then relentless. Thunder rolled across the city like the low growl of something awakening. Morgan leaned forward, elbows on the table, heart drumming with a mix of duty and instinct. Who the hell are you, really? He whispered to the glass. Inside the cell, Lyle looked up, her emerald eyes flickering faintly, as if she had heard him from across the barrier. She smiled barely. The only one who still believes, she murmured to herself. And somewhere far above Earth's orbit, beyond the edge of human detection, something vast stirred in the dark, a ripple of movement among the stars, ancient and patient. The first Dravari scout ships had already entered the solar system, invisible to human eyes, but not to hers. The countdown had begun. The clock in the holding room ticked past midnight. The hum of fluorescent lights was the only sound that dared to break the stillness. Officer Jack Morgan sat across from the alien woman Lyle Noxa, his elbows resting on the interrogation table, his expression caught between fascination and disbelief. She hadn't moved in hours. Her posture was perfect, unshaken, as if she were carved from violet crystal. Her eyes, those impossible emerald orbs, stayed fixed on the wall clock. Every 60 seconds, her pupils dilated slightly, then contracted again. Counting, Morgan realized, not time itself, but something else. He cleared his throat. You said 60 days before, whatever they are, arrive. What happens then? Leo turned her head, the motion smooth, almost feline. They come to harvest, she said simply. They will strip your planet of minerals, metals, and biological matter. Every living thing that breathes will become fuel for their ships. Morgan leaned back, trying to process it. And you expect me to believe all that after today? Her crest shimmered faintly, a subtle pulse that betrayed emotion. I don't expect belief human, only understanding. Before Morgan could answer, the door creaked open. Officer Daniels entered with two men in dark suits. Their badges flashed silver under the fluorescent glare. FBI. One of them, tall and sharp-eyed, spoke briskly. Officer Morgan, thank you for your cooperation. We'll take it from here. Morgan frowned. She's still under my jurisdiction until... Not anymore, the agent interrupted. National security matter. You're dismissed. Daniel smirked, relieved to hand off the problem. But Morgan's gut twisted. The agent's tone was too clinical, too rehearsed. He glanced back at Leal. Her gaze had shifted, not at them but at the men in suits, studying them, measuring. Then her eyes flicked to him, a single silent plea. "Don't let them take me." Morgan hesitated only a moment. It was all she needed. As the agents moved to cuff her, a sudden tremor rocked the building, the kind of deep, resonant quake that vibrated from below, not above. Lights flickered. The fire alarm blared. One agent cursed, reaching for his radio. Leal's crest flared bright silver. "Seismic disturbance," she said quickly. "Not natural. The Dravari used subspace scanners. They found me." Morgan blinked. "Excuse me, what?" The floor shuddered again. Ceiling tiles fell. The taller agent shouted for an evacuation. Daniels bolted. Amid the chaos, Leal moved, a blur of grace and precision. Her hand found Morgan's wrist, her skin cool and electric. "If you wish to live," she said, "come with me." He didn't understand why he obeyed, only that he did. They ran through the dim corridors, alarms screaming overhead. Smoke billowed from somewhere below. The emergency lights painted everything red, the color of panic. They reached the back exit where Morgan's police ID card could override the locks. "How do you even know where you're going?" he demanded between breaths. Leal's eyes glowed faintly. "Your infrastructure is primitive but logical. I scanned its layout hours ago." Morgan stopped dead. "You hacked a police station?" "I learned it," she corrected, tone sharp. "Your species loves to keep secrets in machines that whisper to anyone who listens." The door clicked open. Cold night air rushed in, rain pelting their faces. Outside, the city burned faintly orange in the distance, an electrical grid failure spreading from the park area. Morgan's heart hammered. "You did that too?" Lyle shook her head. "No, that is your own doing. Your people triggered containment protocols around my ship. It reacts to hostility." Thunder rolled. Sirens wailed far away. In the distance, helicopters circled like vultures. They didn't have much time. Morgan led her toward his Jeep parked near the back lot. "Get in," he said. Lyle hesitated, glancing at the primitive vehicle. "This machine uses combustion, inefficient." He smirked despite the chaos. "Welcome to Earth, lady. Buckle up." The Jeep roared to life, tires skidding on wet asphalt as they sped into the night. The police radio crackled reports of unknown seismic activity and possible terrorist threat. Morgan turned the dial off. He didn't need to hear it. For a long moment, only the sound of rain filled the cabin. Leo watched the lights blur through the windshield, her face bathed in passing neon. "You are helping me," she said softly. "Why?" Morgan glanced at her. "Maybe I've lost my mind. Maybe I'm just tired of not believing in anything." Her lips curved, not quite a smile, but something gentler. "Faith, then, a rare resource among your kind." He chuckled. "And what about your kind?" Lyle turned to the window. "We lost our faith a long time ago." They drove through the sleeping city until the lights gave way to open highway. Morgan's hands tightened on the wheel. "So where are we going?" "To someone who might listen," Lushel replied. "You spoke earlier of trust your instinct. You mentioned a relative connected to your science division." Morgan blinked. "My uncle, yeah. Pete Callahan, retired NASA engineer." "How?" "I accessed your personnel records," she said simply. "He may be the only human capable of comprehending the magnitude of this threat." Morgan sighed, half impressed, half unnerved. "You've got a thing for breaking privacy laws." Leal's crest pulsed faintly, amusement perhaps. "Where I come from, secrecy is a prelude to extinction." They drove in silence for several miles. The rain softened into mist, the horizon slowly paling toward dawn. Lyle sat perfectly still, eyes closed, breathing slow. Morgan caught himself glancing at her too often. Her presence filled the vehicle, not with noise, but gravity. Like standing near a storm you didn't understand but couldn't step away from. "You're quiet," he said finally. "I'm calculating probabilities," she murmured, without opening her eyes. "Of survival, of persuasion, of whether this connection between us will prove consequential." He frowned. "Connection." Her eyes opened, meeting his. "When you intervened earlier, when you stopped your kind from harming me, your bioelectric field resonated with mine. It was brief, but measurable." "I have no idea what that means," he said. "It means," she said, "that your faith carries energy." Morgan laughed softly. Lady, you've been reading too much human poetry. Leo tilted her head. And yet poetry is the closest thing your species has to truth. By the time they reached the outskirts of town, dawn had begun to creep over the horizon, painting the wet roads in pale gold. Morgan turned onto a narrow gravel drive, leading to a modest ranch house surrounded by old satellite dishes and rusting antennas. My uncle's place, he said, parking. Don't touch anything unless it hums. Then definitely don't touch it. Before they could step out, headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. Black SUVs unmarked speeding toward them. Shit, Morgan muttered. We're being followed. Lyle's crest flared bright. They've triangulated my energy signature. You must accelerate. In this old Jeep, he scoffed. Lady, this isn't a starship. Then improvise, she said calmly. Morgan floored the gas. Gravel sprayed behind them. The SUVs followed tires, screeching engines roaring. Bullets cracked against the back window warning shots, or maybe not. Morgan swerved onto an old service road leading into a cluster of abandoned wind turbines. Are those your people? He shouted. No, Lyell answered, her tone darkening. Yours. He risked a glance at her. You're saying your government seeks to contain what it fears, even knowledge. A bullet shattered the rear window. Morgan ducked instinctively. Okay, that's it. He jerked the wheel hard, sliding between two turbines. Lyell pressed her palm to the dashboard. The Jeep's electronics flickered, then the entire vehicle glowed faintly blue. The next bullet struck an invisible barrier and ricocheted harmlessly. Morgan gawked. You just gave my car a force field? Temporarily, she said. Don't crash it. Now you tell me. They barreled through the last stretch, skidding into his uncle's gravel yard. The SUV slowed behind, cautious now, their engines idling. Morgan jumped out, pulling Lyell along. The front door burst open. Dr. Peter Callahan, white-haired, barefoot, wearing NASA pajamas, stood there holding a wrench like a weapon. Morgan, he barked. What the hell? Long story, Morgan panted. Uncle Pete, meet an alien. Alien, meet the only man I trust not to call the cops. Pete blinked at Lyell wrench, lowering. Holy, she's actually purple. Violet, Leo corrected politely. Behind them, the black SUVs stopped. Agents stepped out, weapons drawn. Lyell turned, eyes narrowing. Her crest blazed like molten silver. Morgan saw the same shimmer he'd noticed back at the park, an energy field forming around her. They won't take me alive, she said. Morgan stepped forward between her and the guns, raising his hands. Wait, whom? He felt her hand touch his shoulder, cool and electric, just like before. A pulse of light surged outward, silent, but seismic. The agents stumbled their radios, sparking their weapons, shorting out. Within seconds, the yard fell silent again, except for the wind. Pete's mouth hung open. Well, he said, finally, guess breakfast can wait. Lyell turned to Morgan, her expression unreadable. You trusted your instincts, she said softly. Morgan managed a breathless smile. Yeah, and for once I'm glad I did. Above them, the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, thin, defiant, and golden. It touched her violet skin like a blessing, and for the briefest moment, she didn't look alien at all. She looked right. And somewhere far beyond the sky in the cold expanse of space, the Dravari fleet shifted course, accelerating toward the small blue world that had just begun to believe. Dr. Peter Callahan's house smelled like coffee, ozone, and old equations. Every surface was cluttered with half-finished inventions, coil arrays, frequency readers, data crystals, and a coffee mug that probably hadn't been washed since the last administration. Pete moved through the chaos like a man immune to disorder. He tossed a towel on a chair, turned to Morgan, and pointed the wrench at Lyell. So he said, You're really from Vega. Lyell inclined her head with elegant poise. Vega System Sector 14 Gamma. My world once orbited twin suns. Now it drifts in ruin. Pete whistled softly. And you came all this way to warn us. Yes, she replied. Your planet's resonance signature has been detected by the Dravari Collective. They devour civilizations like yours, first the resources, then the life forms. Morgan leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She's telling the truth, Uncle. I've seen what her ship can do. Pete studied her with sharp, analytical eyes, the kind that had once seen patterns in starlight and called them possibilities. You know, he muttered back, in the 80s, NASA picked up a faint signal from Vega. Repeating harmonics we couldn't decode. The higher-ups buried it. Lyell's expression didn't change. That was not us. That was them, the Dravari. They send scouts before the swarm. Pete rubbed his beard. Damn, guess my retirement just got complicated. Before anyone could say more, a deep vibration hummed through the house. The lights flickered, dimmed, then cut out entirely. Morgan went for his sidearm. What now? Lyle's crest flared with urgency. They found me again. But not Dravari, your own government. Through the blinds, they saw it, black helicopters descending silently, blades cutting the mist. Unmarked, efficient, inevitable. Pete groaned. Oh, hell. They tracked the Jeep's plates. Kid, next time you kidnap an alien, take the bus. Morgan glared, not helping. Outside floodlights snapped on, turning night into white daylight. A megaphone boomed. This is Agent Reed of the Department of Extraterrestrial Management and Containment. Step out of the house with your hands visible. Pete blinked. DEMs, they still exist. I thought that was a myth. Leo's voice was calm but cold. They were never a myth. They're the reason your planet hasn't yet panicked about the existence of other species. Morgan turned to her. You knew about them. Every major species in this quadrant does. Earth's government signed a secrecy accord 50 of your years ago. DEMC enforces it. Before he could react, the front door burst open, tactical agents swarming in with weapons drawn. Pete raised his hands. Don't shoot, boys. I'm on your Christmas card list. A tall man stepped forward, suit immaculate despite the chaos. His presence filled the room like authority incarnate. Agent Thomas Reed, he announced, showing credentials too quickly to read. You must be Lyle Noxa of Vega. Lyle's expression hardened. You already know who I am. Reed smiled thinly. We know everything that enters our atmosphere. You've caused quite a commotion. Morgan moved to intervene, but Reed raised a hand. Relax, officer. You did the right thing bringing her here. Now we'll handle it. Morgan frowned. Handle it how? Reed's eyes flat as mirrors flicked toward him. With professionalism. Something your department lacks. Lyle stepped forward, ignoring the weapons aimed at her. You don't understand the scale of the threat. The Dravari are coming. Reed interrupted. We're aware. That's why you're both coming with us. Pete raised an eyebrow. You want me too? Reed gave a thin smile. You're still on the payroll, Dr. Callahan, whether you knew it or not. Within minutes, they were in armored transports heading toward the city's outskirts. The convoy moved in silence, tires humming over wet asphalt. Morgan sat beside Lyle, handcuffed but defiant. Across from them, Reed's expression never wavered. You could have asked nicely, Morgan muttered. Reed replied without looking up. National security doesn't ask. Lyle leaned closer to Morgan, her voice low. These humans, they fear their own ignorance more than external danger. He smirked. Welcome to Earth politics. They arrived at what looked like an abandoned water treatment plant. Only the multiple guard towers and drones circling overhead hinted otherwise. The facility's gates opened silently, swallowing them into the underground. Inside, the air grew cooler, sterilized, artificial. The walls were metal and glass, illuminated by white light, so clean it almost hurt to look at. Signs in bold letters read, Olympus Base, DEMC Sector 3. Morgan stared. Olympus. Like the god. Reed adjusted his cufflinks. Names have power. We prefer to own them. They passed through biometric scanners and retinal checkpoints before arriving at a circular conference chamber. Waiting inside were a dozen people, scientists, military officers, and one man whose silver hair and commanding presence drew immediate attention. Reed saluted. Director Hayes, the Vega envoy as requested. Hayes nodded, rising to greet them. His voice was deep, calm, and heavy with the weight of responsibility. Miss Noxa, Dr. Callahan, Officer Morgan. Welcome to Olympus Base. I wish it were under better circumstances. Pete crossed his arms. You knew? Hayes sighed. Of course. Humanity's not as blind as you think. We've been preparing for first contact since Roswell, not the crash, the treaty. Morgan blinked. Treaty with who? Hayes pressed a control pad on the table. The room dimmed and a holographic projection ignited above it, a map of the solar system dotted with blinking red points beyond Neptune's orbit. The Dravari scouts, Hayes explained, detected 3 months ago. We've been tracking their trajectory ever since. They'll reach Earth orbit in less than 60 days. Lyle's eyes widened slightly. Then my warning was not in vain. Quite the opposite, Hayes said. Your arrival confirmed our worst fears, and your knowledge may save us. Reed added, "We've made contact with 7 alien civilizations since 1974. 5 have become allies. None, however, possess the firepower to challenge the Dravari." Hayes gestured to the hologram again, zooming in on a faint blue line that intersected the Dravari trajectory. "This," he said, "is our defense project, the Phase Disruptor, a weapon designed to destabilize the Dravari hive network." Pete frowned. "You actually built it? That was theoretical tech." "Not anymore," Hayes replied, "thanks to data from our Luminar allies." At the mention, a tall figure stepped from the shadows, ethereal blue-skinned, with eyes like pools of mercury. The alien's presence radiated calm authority. "I am Thalion of the Luminar," he said in a voice that resonated like distant thunder. "My people once fought the Dravari. We paid dearly for victory." Lyle bowed slightly. "I have heard of your kind. Your wisdom is legend." Thalion inclined his head. "Wisdom born of loss. If the Dravari reach your planet, it will become another tomb." Morgan looked between them, all overwhelmed. "So let me get this straight. Aliens have been here for decades. There's a secret agency running the world. And now we're all about to die in 2 months. Hayes nodded grimly. "That's the summary version." Pete rubbed his temples. "You could have led with that." Reed leaned forward. "Which brings us to the reason we brought you here, Officer Morgan. You made direct contact with the Vega envoy without containment protocols. Her ship responded only to you." Morgan blinked. "What?" Leo confirmed softly. "It recognizes his biofrequency. Our resonance fields interacted. It bonded to him." Reed's eyes narrowed. "Then you're connected. That may prove useful." Hayes stood. "We'll need your cooperation. Both of you, Miss Noxa, our scientists require your assistance adapting the disruptor to Dravari vulnerabilities. Officer Morgan, you'll serve as her human interface." Morgan frowned. "You're drafting me." Hayes smiled faintly. "Call it conscription for the survival of the species." Hours later, they were escorted to their quarters, sterile rooms across a narrow corridor. As Morgan reached his door, he glanced toward Leil's. She paused before entering, her expression unreadable. "You still trust them?" she asked quietly. Morgan shrugged. "I don't even trust myself right now." Her crest pulsed faintly, a flicker of empathy. "Be careful, Jack Morgan. Your species has a gift for creating its own enemies." He met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. Recognition, maybe even kinship. Then she turned away and disappeared behind the sliding door. Morgan stood alone for a long time, the hum of machinery echoing through the hall. Somewhere deep in the facility, alarms murmured, softly distant routine and easy to ignore. But far beyond Olympus Base, in the frozen black between worlds, a new signal pulsed, faint, rhythmic, alive. The Dravari hive had detected its lost quarry, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the swarm began to move. The lights of Olympus Base never went dark. Even in the artificial night cycle, the corridors glowed faint blue, humming softly with recycled air and invisible secrets. It was a place built for sleeplessness, for people who had seen too much of the stars and didn't trust what stared back. Leo moved through it like a shadow. Her violet form shimmered faintly beneath the sterile light. Each step was deliberate, graceful, but her expression was distant. The longer she stayed underground, the heavier the air felt, dense with human anxiety and the electromagnetic hum of technology too crude for her senses. She entered Laboratory C, where a cluster of scientists hovered around the phase disruptor prototype, a large crystal cord weapon encased in translucent alloy. It pulsed faintly like a sleeping heart. Dr. Callahan was among them, hunched over a monitor, muttering equations to himself. When he saw her, he straightened. "Morning, alien ambassador. We've been trying to calibrate this thing for hours. The power readings fluctuate like mood swings in a soap opera." Lyle approached the device, placing her hand gently against the containment shield. The pulse of the crystal quickened, glowing brighter where her fingers rested. "This crystal," she murmured, "is attuned to emotional frequencies. The Dravari hive mind operates on resonance, a symphony of neural vibrations. The only way to disrupt it is to send an opposing harmonic strong enough to fracture the collective frequency." Pete blinked. "English, please." "It listens to feelings," she said simply. "It feeds on synchronization. If we break that, we break them." Before he could respond, footsteps echoed behind them. Morgan entered wearing the gray DEMC uniform, a civilian in soldier's clothes. His eyes met hers, and for a brief, disorienting second, the air between them shifted. The disruptor's crystal flared. Everyone froze. Pete stared. What the hell was that? Leo slowly withdrew her hand. Her crest rippled with faint silver light. Our resonance, she said softly. It reacts to him. Morgan frowned. You mean me? What did I do? Your bioelectric field interacts with mine. The energy alignment between us enhances the crystal's output. Pete exhaled, half impressed, half alarmed. Well, that's either a miracle or the weirdest definition of chemistry I've ever heard. Leo turned to Morgan. You may be the key to stabilizing the weapon. Morgan raised an eyebrow. So now I'm a power sword. More like a conduit, she said. But yes, in essence. Reed entered just then, his sharp suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. Director Hayes wants results, not romance. If this thing works, we need to scale it up. If it doesn't, his gaze lingered on Leo. We find other options. Morgan bristled. She's standing right here, you know. Reed smiled thinly. That's why I said it. After he left, the lab fell silent again, tension thick as fog. Pete muttered something about bureaucratic bastards and returned to his monitors. Morgan stepped closer to Lyle, lowering his voice. You okay? Her eyes flicked toward the door Reed had disappeared through. Your leaders fear what they cannot command. They think control is safety. They are mistaken. Morgan nodded slowly. Welcome to humanity. For the first time, she smiled, small, uncertain, but real. That night, the hum of the bass felt louder. Morgan lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. His mind replayed every moment since she'd landed, the shimmer of her ship, the way she spoke truth. Like it was mathematics, the strange warmth when she touched him. He got up and wandered the hallway, finding himself outside her quarters before realizing it. He hesitated, then knocked lightly. The door slid open. Leo stood there barefoot, wearing the simple gray DEMC attire they'd issued her. Somehow she made it look regal. Her expression softened when she saw him. You cannot rest, she said. It wasn't a question. He shook his head. Too much noise in my brain. You seek silence, she said, but your species has forgotten how. She stepped aside, gesturing for him to enter. The room was minimal, bed desk, faint blue lighting. On the wall, she had drawn intricate, circular patterns with a stylus glowing faintly Vega symbols, alive with motion. What's that, he asked. Resonance fields. Where I come from, they calm the mind. Would you like to see? He nodded. She motioned for him to stand before one of the circles. The glowing lines pulsed gently. He felt his heartbeat sync with the rhythm. The air seemed to thicken with warmth, though the temperature hadn't changed. It responds to emotion, she explained. The stronger the bond, the stronger the harmony. Morgan looked at her. Really looked. And what about us? Is that what's happening? Lyle hesitated. Her crest shimmered in soft gold, an involuntary tell. Our resonance is rare. I did not expect it to form with a human. Is that a bad thing? It's dangerous. Her voice lowered. On Vega, resonance bonds are sacred. They can amplify power or destroy both minds if uncontrolled. Morgan's voice softened. Sounds like love on my planet. Leo's gaze lifted, meeting his. Love. That word carries heat when you speak it. He took a slow step closer. That's one way to describe it. The silence between them shifted, charged with something unspoken. She looked at him as though studying a living paradox, a fragile, irrational creature who somehow made the universe vibrate differently. You risk much for me, she said. You could have let your government take me. He shrugged. Maybe I just like impossible odds. Her lips curved faintly. Then you are truly human. The next moment happened without intention, or maybe with every intention neither dared to admit. She reached out, fingertips brushing his chest. He didn't move away. The contact sent a jolt through both of them, visible, almost audible. The air vibrated, lights flickered. The resonance field on the wall flared like a heartbeat. Morgan swallowed hard. What was that? Leo's voice was husky, lower. Feedback. Our emotions feed the field. The more we feel, the stronger it becomes. And what happens if it gets too strong? She looked up, eyes luminous, voice almost a whisper. Then it could bend reality itself. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the bass faded into nothing. It was just them, two beings from worlds apart, standing too close in a universe that suddenly felt small. Morgan raised his hand, brushing his fingers against her crest, a gesture that felt instinctive reverent. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into the touch, her breathing quickening. "You are not supposed to touch that," she said softly. "It's intimate." He smiled faintly. "I figured." Her eyes flickered with light. "You learn fast. And you feel more human than most humans I've met." "Perhaps," she whispered. "Or perhaps you are becoming something else." Their lips met, tentative at first, then certain. The contact sent another wave through the room. The resonance field exploded in radiant blue, filling the chamber with cascading symbols that spiraled into infinity. Every sensor in the base registered a sudden spike in energy output. Somewhere, alarms began to blink red. They didn't notice. When they finally parted breathless, the room glowed like the heart of a star. Lyle looked at him, her expression unreadable awe, confusion, longing. "Your species," she said softly as chaos made flesh. But somehow in that chaos, there is harmony. Morgan brushed a thumb across her jawline. "Maybe that's what keeps us alive." Moments later, the door burst open. Reed stood there, flanked by guards. His eyes darted to the luminous walls, the readings flashing across his wrist monitor, and then to the two of them standing too close. "What the hell did you do?" he demanded. Leo stepped forward, calm but defiant. "We discovered the key to your weapon." Reed's gaze hardened. "You mean you compromised the base?" Hayes' voice came over the intercom, urgent. "All personnel to alert stations. We've detected an incoming anomaly approaching Earth orbit, large mass signature." Reed snapped toward Leo. "You led them here." "No," she said firmly. "They followed my warning and your arrogance." Morgan stepped in front of her. "Enough. She's on our side." Reed's hand hovered near his pistol. "You sure about that, officer? Because every time she breathes, our sensors glitch." "Maybe that's because she's the only reason we're still breathing," Morgan shot back. For a moment, no one moved. The alarm lights painted them all in crimson pulses. Then Hayes' voice came again, louder, sharper. "Dravari scout fleet confirmed entering the upper atmosphere. All units to battle stations." Reed lowered his gun, but kept his glare fixed on Leo. "If this goes south, I'll put a bullet in both of you myself." He stormed out, barking orders. Leo exhaled, crest dimming. "Your leaders will tear themselves apart before the Dravari even arrive." Morgan reached for her hand. "Then we don't let them." She looked at him, something fragile and fierce flickering in her emerald eyes. "Together, then?" He nodded once. "Together." As alarms echoed through Olympus base and the walls trembled with the first seismic ripples of invasion, the resonance between them thrummed like a heartbeat shared across two species, a bond that defied logic, war, and even fate itself. And deep in space, the Dravari hive turned its eyes fully toward Earth, unaware that the weapon destined to end them had just fallen in love. The war began before dawn. Olympus base vibrated with the mechanical heartbeat of panic alarms, blaring lights, flashing red across steel walls. Soldiers rushed through the corridors, weapons slung tight. Scientists shouted into comms. The sterile calm of humanity's most secret fortress had shattered overnight. Morgan and Leo ran toward the command deck, their boots echoing down the hall. The sound of distant explosions rumbled above them, not from the surface, but beyond the atmosphere. "They're here," Lyle said quietly, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Dravari scouts. Their vessels are breaching low orbit." Morgan's jaw tightened. "How bad?" "Worse than predicted. They've adapted faster. They always do." They reached the main control room, a cathedral of technology and dread. Director Hayes stood before the central, hollow display, his silver hair, disheveled face pale but composed. 30 ships in orbit," he said without preamble, "each the size of a city block. They're scanning every frequency we've got." Dr. Callahan was there too, surrounded by data feeds. "They're looking for her," he muttered. Lyle stepped forward. "Then you must mask your global resonance network. They sense emotion as vibration. Panic draws them closer." Hayes nodded grimly. "We're trying, but..." The lights flickered, then died. For a heartbeat, the base plunged into darkness. A low hum followed, mechanical, insect-like, echoing through the vents. Lyle's crest glowed faintly. "They're inside." Before anyone could respond, emergency lights snapped back on. But the red glow illuminated something far worse. Half the soldiers on the floor, motionless, their eyes blank and veins crawling with metallic filaments. Pete gasped. What in— Dravari infiltrators, Lacio whispered. Their nanite swarms infect neural systems. These men are already part of the hive. The dead soldiers twitched rows in eerie synchronization and opened fire. Bullets tore through consoles. Chaos erupted. Morgan tackled Lael behind a blast shield, drawing his pistol. Callahan, get down. Pete dove for cover as Hayes slammed the emergency lockdown. All units sector breach, contain the infection. But it was too late. The infected soldiers moved as one, their eyes glowing red. Lyle extended her hand, her crest blazing silver-white. A pulse of light rippled from her palm, freezing the attackers mid-step. They convulsed their bodies, disintegrating into ash and circuitry. The silence that followed was deafening. Hayes stared at her. God help us. But Reed didn't look shocked. He looked satisfied. Fascinating, he murmured. So the resonance weapon works after all. Morgan's instincts prickled. Reed, what the hell are you talking about? Reed smiled faintly. You think DEMC was preparing for defense? No. We've been preparing for dominance. The Dravari hive mind is the ultimate system. No rebellion, no emotion, no failure. Imagine humanity harnessing that perfection. Hayes turned sharply. You're out of line, Agent. Reed's expression didn't change. On the contrary, sir, I'm fulfilling our contingency directive, Project Ascendant. You should have stayed retired. Before anyone could react, Reed pulled a sidearm and fired. The bullet hit Hayes squarely in the chest. Director Pete shouted, rushing to his side. Hayes felt blood spreading across his uniform. Stop. Him, he gasped. Reed tapped his earpiece. Initiate purge protocol. Containment priority alpha assets only. The overhead doors slammed shut. Gas hissed from hidden vents. Leal's crest flared in alarm. Neurotoxin, she said. He's venting the base. Morgan grabbed her hand. We're leaving. Now. They ran through the smoke alarms blaring above. Pete followed, clutching a data drive. I've got the disruptor files, he shouted. Keep them, Leal said. They may be all that's left. They reached the elevator shaft, but Reed's voice echoed over the intercom, calm as ever. You can't run Morgan. She's the key. The hive wants her alive, and so do I. Morgan snarled. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. Automatic gunfire rained from the catwalks above. DEMC troopers, Reed's loyalists, opened fire. Sparks exploded off the walls. Lyle threw up a shimmering barrier of light bullets, disintegrating against it like dust in the sun. Go, she shouted. I'll hold them. Morgan shook his head. Not without you. You don't understand. If I fall, they'll use me to complete their link. The disruptor will become a Dravari weapon. He grabbed her shoulders. Then we make sure that never happens. Together. For a second, she looked at him, truly looked. Then she nodded. They sprinted toward the hangar level. The corridors shook violently. Explosions rippled from the lower floors. The facility was collapsing. Morgan's lungs burned. Pete, exit plan. Emergency launch bay, north wing, Pete panted. Still operational. They burst through the final security door into a vast hangar lit by emergency strobes. In the center stood Liao's ship, the same sleek silver vessel that had brought her to Earth. Its hull shimmered, faintly pulsing like it recognized her. It survived the transfer, she breathed. We have a chance. They raced toward it, but from the shadows, Reed emerged, pistol raised, eyes cold. Don't move, he said. Behind him, two soldiers dragged the wounded Director Hayes, still alive, barely breathing. Reed's gaze locked on Leo. You're going to finish what you started. The Dravari tech will merge with human neural networks. Together we'll ascend beyond flesh. Morgan lifted his gun. You're insane. Reed smiled. No, I'm evolved. He fired. The bullet never reached its target. Lyle raised her hand, energy flaring around her like a storm. The projectile vaporized midair. The shockwave sent Reed flying backward. Jack now, Pete yelled, slamming his hand on the ship's access pad. The ramp lowered with a hiss. Morgan helped Liel aboard as alarms screamed across the hangar. The ship's interior came alive, consoles, glowing symbols dancing. Pete stumbled in last, clutching his chest. Go, go! Reed, bloodied but conscious, pulled himself to his knees and fired again. The shot hit Pete squarely in the back. Morgan's scream drowned in the roar of the engines. He dragged his uncle inside, cradling him as the ship lifted. Pete's eyes fluttered. The files. Take them. Don't let him win. Uncle Pete, hold on. But he was already gone. The ship shot through the collapsing roof, streaking into the storm-choked sky. Below them, Olympus Base imploded, a pillar of light swallowed by fire. High above the clouds, silence returned. Only the hum of the ship filled the air. Morgan sat motionless, blood on his hands. Lyle knelt beside him, her eyes soft with something between grief and reverence. He died for knowledge, she said. That is a noble death. Morgan shook his head. He died because of us. No, she whispered. Because of them, the ones who believe control is strength. He looked up, meeting her gaze. Then we end them. Reed, the Dravari, all of it. Leo nodded slowly. Then we will need the crystal from my ship, the Vega core. It's the only thing that can power the phase disruptor. Morgan wiped the blood from his hands and stood. Where is it? Hidden in the research facility on the outskirts of the city. DEMC moved it there after my arrival. Then that's where we're going. She hesitated. It will be heavily guarded and Reed will follow. Morgan's expression hardened. Good. Let him. The ship tilted, engines roaring are cutting through the storm clouds toward the horizon. Lightning danced along the hull, casting violet reflections across Lucille's face. She looked out the viewport toward the faint blue curve of Earth below, and for the first time in years, she felt something her kind had long forgotten. Hope. Fragile, reckless, human hope. Morgan reached for her hand. We're not done yet, he said quietly. Her fingers intertwined with his, their palms sparking faintly with that familiar electric warmth, the resonance between them alive once more. Below, Olympus Base burned. Above, the Dravari fleet advanced. And somewhere in between, in that fragile space where love met extinction, humanity's last gamble had begun. The sky was no longer blue. By the time Morgan and Lael's ship broke through the upper atmosphere, Earth's horizon burned with streaks of crimson, fire, falling debris from satellites, shuttles, and orbital defenses reduced to ash. The Dravari fleet loomed above, vast and terrible, their hive ships pulsing with dark light like monstrous hearts suspended in space. They're forming an encirclement pattern. Lael said, her tone measured, but her eyes, those emerald eyes, betrayed the calculation of fear. It's how they harvest. They'll seed nanite spores into the atmosphere, first dissolve organic matter, then strip the crust. Morgan's knuckles tightened on the flight controls. Not this time. The ship's instruments flickered as he pushed the engines harder. Below them, the Pacific shimmered, reflecting the light of burning re-entry trails. Radio chatter filled the cabin, broken transmissions, last stands, pleas for reinforcements. This is Tokyo Command, orbital defense grid collapsing. Berlin battle group down. Jesus, they're everywhere. Lyle muted the comms. If you listen to despair too long, she said quietly, you start to believe it. Morgan glanced at her, and you don't. I've seen 12 worlds die, but none fought like yours. Her words landed heavier than any weapon. They approached the outskirts of the city, once bright with skyscrapers, now half-shrouded in smoke. The DEMC research facility lay hidden beneath an old industrial complex, sealed under miles of reinforced concrete. As they descended, Lael's scanners detected multiple heat signatures. Dravari ground units, she warned. They've already found it. Morgan drew his weapon. Then we take it back. The ship touched down in a ruined courtyard. Smoke curled from burning vehicles. The ground vibrated with the distant rhythm of gunfire. As the ramp lowered, Morgan stepped into the chaos. Human soldiers retreating, explosions tearing through the air. A young lieutenant stumbled toward them, eyes wide. Sir, are you DEMC? Morgan showed his badge. Used to be. Who's in charge? Was Captain Rivas, but the soldier swallowed hard. They took him. Lyle's crest shimmered faintly. The Dravari assimilate command figures first. It's strategic, remove the mind, claim the body. Morgan nodded grimly. Then let's make sure they choke on this one. Inside the facility, corridors were scarred by plasma burns. The walls hummed faintly with Dravari residue, organic circuits spreading like frost. The closer they got to the central chamber, the thicker it became. Leo's voice dropped to a whisper. They're trying to merge with the technology here. The disruptor is their prize. Morgan gripped his rifle. Then were the fire alarm. As they rounded a corner, 3 Dravari drones emerged, tall insectoid silhouettes with glassy carapaces reflecting dim light. Their claws clicked with eerie precision. Morgan fired first short burst, but their armor deflected most rounds. Lyle extended both hands, her crest blazing white. A pulse erupted from her palms, striking the nearest drone. It screamed a sound like grinding metal, and human agony mixed, then shattered into dust. The others staggered, disoriented. Morgan finished them with clean, head-level shots. He turned to her, panting. "Still think we need permission to fire?" "You fight with instinct," she said, catching her breath. "That's why you win." They reached the containment vault, a massive chamber humming with energy. In the center floated the Vega crystal, suspended in an electromagnetic field. Its blue-white glow reflected off every surface. But they weren't alone. Agent Reed stood before it, flanked by soldiers, or what remained of them. Their faces were human. Their eyes were Javari red. Reed smiled, arms spread. "Welcome back, Officer Morgan. Miss Noxa, you're just in time to witness the future." Morgan raised his gun. "Step away from the crystal." Reed tilted his head, unbothered. "You still don't get it, do you? Humanity doesn't need saving, it needs evolution. The Dravari Hive is order, unity, no more war, no more chaos, no more choice." Lyle stepped forward, her voice sharp as glass. "That is not evolution. That is extinction wearing discipline as a disguise." Reed laughed softly. "Says the alien who fell in love with chaos. Look at you, the living embodiment of contradiction." He pressed a control device on his wrist. The soldiers twitched, eyes flickering. "The moment I bond with the Hive network, through the crystal earth becomes the new node. Humanity will ascend." Morgan shot up first. The bullet hit Reed's shoulder. He staggered but didn't fall. The man's veins pulsed with metallic veins, his transformation already begun. "You're too late," Reed hissed. "It's already inside me." Leo moved faster than thought. Her hands shot out, summoning a surge of radiant light that enveloped the crystal, tearing it from its containment field. The soldiers convulsed as the resonance pulse disrupted their neural link. Reed screamed, dropping to his knees, his voice distorting, half human, half hive. Morgan grabbed Lyle's arm. "The disruptor. Can you charge it?" "Only if the crystal bonds again with us." Reed's distorted voice echoed behind them. "You can't win. The Hive is infinite." Morgan turned back, eyes burning. "So are we." They clasped hands, placing the crystal between their palms. It flared instantly, brighter, hotter, alive. The energy roared through them both, filling the room with vibrating light. Jack Leo gasped, her body trembling, as the resonance deepened. "It's pulling too much." "Hold it," he shouted. "Don't let go." The disruptor's containment frame shuddered as the crystal locked in place. Reed lunged forward, snarling, half his face now plated with chitinous armor. "You don't understand what you're destroying." Morgan met his eyes steady. "Maybe, but it's ours to destroy." He slammed his hand onto the activation pad. The disruptor fired. A sphere of pure harmonic energy exploded outward, vaporizing the infected soldiers instantly. Reed's body disintegrated mid-scream, torn apart by frequencies too human for his synthetic veins. The pulse ripped through the atmosphere, a wave of blue light spreading across the sky, invisible to human eyes but fatal to Dravari code. Lyle collapsed into Morgan's arms, her skin faintly luminous. "It's working," she whispered. "Their hive link is fracturing." Above Earth, chaos turned to confusion. Dravari ships twisted erratically, their formations crumbling. The massive mothership pulsed once, twice, then erupted into shards of glowing debris. Across the globe, the night sky lit with silent explosions as the fleet unraveled. But the energy backlash hit the planet too. Olympus-based remnants, defense satellites, even the atmosphere itself rippled with the shock. The ship's warning lights flared red. "Energy overload." Lyle cried, struggling to stabilize the controls. "The crystal, it's burning itself out." Morgan looked at her, saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the pale glow of her skin flickering. "What happens when it does?" "It'll detonate. Everything within 500 miles. Then we get it out of here." He pulled her to her feet. "We'll take the ship up and eject the crystal into orbit. Can you pilot?" She shook her head weakly. "Not alone." He smiled, the faintest spark of that stubborn human defiance. "Good thing you're not alone." Minutes later, the ship soared through the atmosphere once more. The crystal pulsed violently in its containment, pod cracks forming along its surface. Warning lights screamed across the console. Morgan strapped Lyle into the co-pilot seat. "When I give the word, you eject the pod." Her eyes widened. No, the shockwave will vaporize us before we clear orbit. Not if I angle the ship manually. You just focus on releasing it. Jack, don't argue. You're the genius. I'm the idiot with good timing. For a moment, her composure cracked. She reached for his hand. You saved your world today. He looked at her, really looked. We did. They held each other's gaze as the ship broke through the clouds, the burning remains of the Dravari fleet scattering like dying stars around them. Now he shouted. Lyle hit the release. The crystal shot from the ship trailing light like a comet. It detonated seconds later, a burst of color that painted the void in blue and gold. The wave hit them. The ship spun violently. Systems failed. Morgan fought the controls, but the engines died in a storm of sparks. We're going down, he gritted out. Leal unstrapped, grabbing his face in both hands. Whatever happens, remember this. The resonance, it's eternal. The last thing he saw was her eyes glowing brighter than the explosion behind them. Then darkness swallowed everything. Silence, weightlessness, a heartbeat. When Morgan woke, he was lying in the wreckage of the ship, half buried in sand. The sun was rising over a shattered coastline. Smoke trailed from the sky where debris still fell. He groaned, pushing himself up. Leal. No answer. Then faint movement. A few meters away, she lay unconscious but breathing. Her violet skin shimmered weakly in the morning light. He crawled to her side, collapsing beside her, relief breaking through exhaustion. We made it. Her eyes fluttered open. Earth survives. He smiled, voice hoarse. For now. She looked at him truly deeply and managed a small, wary smile. Then Vega's warning was not in vain. He touched her hand. No, it brought us home. Above them, the sun rose through the smoke, casting its first light over a scarred but living world. The war was over, but the resonance, the bond that had defied species distance and death itself was only beginning to echo. The world that greeted the dawn was scarred but alive. For the first time in human history, the sky above Earth was filled not with satellites or aircraft, but remnants of alien wreckage, twisted fragments of the Dravari fleet orbiting like dead gods. At night, they shimmered as artificial constellations, a reminder of both terror and triumph. Every nation had felt the tremor. Every screen on the planet had gone dark for 7 minutes during the disruptor blast. When power returned, so did hope. Humanity had survived an extinction event because a woman from the stars and a man with a badge refused to surrender. Morgan woke to the rhythmic sound of waves. The air smelled of salt and smoke. His body ached in ways he didn't know possible, but the ache of being alive was better than the numbness of being gone. Leal was sitting a few meters away, wrapped in a torn emergency blanket, her violet skin illuminated by dawn's light. The colors danced across her like nebula fire. You're awake, she said softly, not turning. Barely. He pushed himself up with a groan. Where are we? Pacific coastline. What's left of it. Morgan squinted at the horizon, half-buried cities, broken towers, but still standing. Humanity's fingerprints smudged but not erased. He moved closer, sitting beside her. You saved us. We saved each other. The resonance stabilized just long enough to deflect the blast. Guess that explains why my hair feels like it's buzzing. She tilted her head, amused. That is residual harmonic feedback. It will fade. He smiled faintly. That's your way of saying, don't worry, human, you won't explode. Correct. They sat in silence for a while, watching sunlight crawl over the wreckage of a world reborn. Do you regret it, she asked suddenly? Leaving Vega, risking everything. Morgan looked at her, really looked. You traveled 369 light years just to warn us. You already risked everything long before I showed up. She considered that crest rippling faintly. Where I come from, emotion is seen as weakness. Yet it was emotion that saved this planet. Perhaps my species has been wrong for millennia. He grinned. Welcome to humanity, where being wrong is basically our superpower. She turned to him, studying his face as though memorizing every imperfection. And yet, for all your flaws, you love without reason. You fight without hope. You believe without proof. Yeah, he said, meeting her gaze. That's what makes us dangerous. And beautiful, she added quietly. Something in her tone made his heart tighten. He reached out, brushing a strand of silver ridge from her temple. You sound like someone who's staying. Perhaps I am. 3 months later, Earth was rebuilding. The DEMC, once a secret, was now a global initiative for defense and cooperation. The remnants of the Dravari technology were being studied in secure facilities, but under Lyell's supervision. No one wanted another Reed incident. Morgan and Lyell lived far from the chaos in a secluded research station overlooking the ocean. To the world, they were symbols of unity, the human and the alien who saved Earth. To each other, they were simply two survivors trying to learn what peace meant. The mornings were quiet. Morgan cooked terrible coffee. Lyell pretended to like it. He taught her sarcasm. She taught him quantum linguistics. Their conversations wandered from the mundane to the cosmic. "Your species dreams of reaching the stars," she said one morning as they stood on the balcony. "But you never realized the stars were already reaching back." "Yeah," he said. "Turns out we just needed someone to answer the phone." She smiled, an odd metaphor but accurate. When she told him it was sunset, the light spilled through the windows, painting the room gold and violet. She stood by the glass, one hand resting lightly on her abdomen. "Jack," she said quietly, "I need to show you something." He turned, noticing the subtle glow beneath her skin, faint rhythmic centered beneath her palm. His breath caught. "Is that—" "Yes." She looked down, then back at him, her expression unreadable and utterly vulnerable. "Our child, a resonance hybrid." He crossed the room slowly, afraid that if he blinked, the moment would vanish. "Is it safe?" "It is possible." She smiled softly. "Vegan biology adapts to compatible genomes. The child's heartbeat aligns with both of ours, a living bridge between species." He placed his hand gently over hers. The faint pulse beneath was steady, strong. "Guess we just rewrote evolution, or began it anew." They stood there as the sea reflected the dying sun, two silhouettes outlined by firelight carrying the future in their joined hands. Months later, visitors began to arrive. Delegates from every continent, scientists from every field. But none caused more stir than the Luminar envoy, tall in silver skin, their presence radiant with quiet power. Ambassador Thalion stepped forward, inclining his head. "Our records show no precedent for such a union. Your offspring represents what the Luminar call the harmonic dawn." Morgan frowned. "Sounds poetic. What does it mean?" "It means," Thalion said, "that what you have created is not just new life, it is new law. A balance between logic and emotion, unity and individuality. The very flaw the Dravari could never evolve beyond." Leo bowed her head slightly. "Then perhaps the universe intends to correct itself through us." The ambassador's luminous eyes glowed brighter. "Do not underestimate symbols, child of Vega. They move civilizations more than armies." After the delegation left, Morgan turned to her. "So we're cosmic parents and political propaganda." She laughed softly, musical as ever. "Welcome to interstellar diplomacy." The birth came during a storm. Lightning streaked across the horizon, thunder rolling over the sea. Inside the research dome, Lyell lay surrounded by a mix of human medics and Luminar healers. The air shimmered with harmonic resonance. The walls vibrated faintly, responding to her pulse. Morgan held her hand, refusing to leave. "You're doing great," he whispered, though his voice trembled. Human reassurance, she murmured, half smiling through pain. "I find it oddly comforting." Then came a surge of light, blinding pure. The storm outside seemed to answer it. When the radiance faded, a single cry filled the room, soft, melodic, neither human nor alien, but something in between. The medic stepped back in awe. The infant's skin shimmered, faint lavender eyes shifting between emerald and sky blue. Tiny crest ridges traced its temples like silver filigree. Morgan felt his throat tighten. "She's perfect." Leo smiled weakly. My people do not define until maturity." He laughed, tears mixing with relief. "Then they're perfect." She looked at the child in her arms, wonder radiating from her face. "Do you hear it?" He frowned. "Hear what?" "The resonance." He listened, and then he felt it. A faint hum deep in the air, like the vibration of distant stars. It wasn't sound, it was harmony. The child's presence filled the room with it, gentle, infinite, alive. "She's singing," he whispered. "No," Leo corrected softly. "They're calling." Weeks passed. News spread across the world and beyond. The Resonance Child, as the media called them, became a symbol of peace. The Luminar declared Earth a protected cultural world. Treaties formed. Old enemies spoke again. But for Morgan and Leo, life shrank down to something simple, A small home by the ocean, laughter in the mornings, the soft pulse of new life at night. Sometimes they sat outside watching the sea, the sky now dotted with alien satellites, Luminar, Vega, and human combined. Do you think they'll ever stop fighting? Oh, Morgan asked one evening. Lyle held the child close. Not entirely, but maybe now they'll remember what's worth fighting for. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. You ever think about what comes next? Always. She looked up at the stars, those distant fires she once crossed alone. But for the first time, I'm not afraid of it. The child stirred, tiny fingers reaching upward as if to touch the sky. Morgan smiled. Guess the universe just got a new explorer. Leo's crest glowed faint gold. Then we will teach them both worlds, the logic of Vega and the heart of Earth. And maybe, Morgan said softly, they'll be better than us. That, she replied, is the hope every parent carries no matter the species. As night deepened, waves whispered against the shore. Above, the Dravari wreckage burned like drifting candles, fading one by one into the void. In their place, new lights appeared, ships from allied worlds moving together across the heavens. The first interstellar fleet born not for conquest, but for unity. And on a quiet stretch of Earth's coast, a human and an alien watched from their balcony, hands entwined, a child asleep between them. The wind carried Lyle's whispers, soft as starlight. We are no longer alone. Morgan smiled, eyes reflecting the endless horizon. No, he said, we never were. The stars shimmered in answer, as if the universe itself had been waiting for this moment, for the day when two species found harmony, not through power or fear, but through love. And far beyond the Milky Way, in the silence between galaxies, the echo of that resonance carried on a heartbeat that belonged to both worlds.